Welcome to Disruptive Conversations. We're just getting started, and today is going to be all about wine and women in wine. So, we are going to be moving into a space of what wine looks like, what it means to be a disruptor in wine. Here's Pascaline. She's got her request in already. She's so on it. Okay, we're going to go live. Moment of buffering. Oh, winning with thyroid disease, absolutely. Shanti Mom, Genuel, Ahmed, hello. And here is Pascal with tremendous determination and exquisitely executing, getting on. Pascaline, I'm going to be introducing the show and myself, and then I'm going to be introducing you. So thank you for coming on with so much ease. It's so great to see you here. So welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations with entrepreneurs, innovators, thought leaders, authors, educators, in which we deep dive into the experiences these women have needed to navigate and conquer in order to create their personal and professional success. And I'm Dr. Risa Ryger, clinical psychologist, and I'm an expert in change. I help people make change at any point in time, and we are built for change. But in order to make positive change, we need to disrupt. You need to disrupt a thought, a feeling, a belief, an action, a habit in order to create your 10.0 life. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And in life, as we know, there are all sorts of sounds, and I just had mowers outside. So we're going to deal with real life here. And my guest today, I cannot tell you how I am beyond thrilled that Pascaline Lepeltier has agreed to come on. Pascaline is the person who's much more behind the scenes in many respects, and I'm so honored that she agreed to come in front of the screen today to be with us and share her wisdom. So let me tell you a little bit about her background, because she is a woman of her own making, of her own vision, in what she has done to disrupt the wine industry, what she's brought to New York. I can't say enough, and her bio says at least some of it, which is that she's a sommelier based in Manhattan. She grew up in the Loire Valley, which is dear to her heart, and it's an area dear to my heart as well. And she was in a career as a philosophy teacher. Now, this I didn't know until I read your bio, Pascaline. And she was working in Michelin star restaurants in France, moved to New York, and she was a star at Rouge Tomate, and we'll go into that story also, which was an extraordinary restaurant, and which was named that had the best wine list in the world by the World of Fine Wine. She became a partner in Racine, and also she has been the master sommelier. She's extraordinary in her accomplishments. She was voted best sommelier in France, not best woman sommelier in France, but best sommelier in France. And she represented France in 2023 as a sommelier, and she came in fourth globally. And so from this extraordinary background, we have Pascaline here today, who is my guide, my innovator, who brings me to the right place with wine every single time without fail. And she is beloved. So Pascaline, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
It's our pleasure. So of all the things that I said about you, is there anything that I haven't said that you would like people to know?
Yeah, I'm currently associated with a great team in a restaurant downtown in Manhattan called Chambers, where like I'm very lucky to be part of a great farm to table place, and working with awesome people and a great wine team. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Fantastic. And how is it, this is a big disruption. And oftentimes people feel, well, if they've started in one career, that they're stuck, like they're in the lane and they can't switch lanes. So how is it that you were able to go from being a philosophy teacher, which is a disruption and a disruption in yourself, to going into the world of wine? Could you fill us in a little bit?
Yeah, like it's surprising you're saying that because seeing it from like I would say a French perspective, you feel like America is way better suited for disruption and change of career, which I think is part of the American mindset of entrepreneurship. France, I never really taught. So I was able to kind of probably do that switch because I was just still in my studying time. But I must say it's been quite complicated, and I did that switch a little bit later in my would I say age frame. I was like in my mid-20s, and I think being a little bit older and stubborn helped me a lot to change a path, especially in my country where it's it's still it's changing, and it's changing I think everywhere for the best, because I think the more experience you have in multiple jobs, the better it is. Uh, but there was still a very big disconnect between university study that are seen as the epitome, the best kind of path you can follow, having all these diplomas and succeeding with PhDs and thesis and all, while having a more vocational career and learning something with your hand or craft jobs, and in my case, restaurants, was seen for a long time as kind of a dead hand, something where you couldn't really be in a career and didn't really make anything. And if you were like in this industry, you probably meant that you were just not somebody very smart, which is absolutely untrue, of course. So I think this is something I'm insisting a lot when I talk about what I've been doing, is the luck I had in France to enter a vocational school and to learn a craft that is as remarkable and requires as much work than probably writing a 600 pages on a subject that is very, very niche. So yeah, it's I'm I've been extremely lucky to see a lot of different type of education, and I must say that a combination of practical and theory that I could have done with wine was a big luck for me to be able to do it, and to do it in the public system, not in a private way, but with an education that was affordable for somebody like me.
Fantastic. So how was it? Because I would imagine that when you came and went into wine, that there weren't a lot of women who were in that space.
Yes and no. That in fact that was women was been at least in the production side. Women were always there in the winemaking and wine production. They were just never recognized. But it was something more. It was a larger issue about agriculture in general, or like what's the place of a woman in this field, where indeed often things were under more the men's names and the main family. But women were here when I arrived. Women were here making wine. Women were already here a little bit, at least talking about wine. People like Jancis Robinson, just to give one example, which is probably the most famous woman critic in the world, was already there writing and paving the way. So things have been changing quite a lot since the 70s. Even women in sommelier, two women, in fact, were already best French sommelier in a larger competition in the late 70s, early 80s. But maybe the visibility was not as much as it is today. And in restaurant was definitely not yet as under the radar. I think women in restaurant were a little bit still at important position, not as frequent, but they were starting to be. And I was just very lucky to arrive at a period of time when we had suddenly just access to more outlets to be seen. So there was women, they were there, they were doing the real groundwork, but you are right, they were just not seen. And thanks to leaders, thanks to women that starting to be refighting for the right to be recognized for their worth and their work in the 80s, before in the 70s and the 90s, suddenly people like me could arrive very quickly and had the luck not to be judged just because they like were a woman, but because of what we could really give to this industry. So it's I'm just very lucky to have had this woman before me, and I'm just trying to put my little stone in the current situation to continue to say, listen, yes, we are as worthy, we are as good, we can have this career, but I know everything is very fragile. So the fight is, I wouldn't say it's a fight, but it's not one yet. We have to continue on a daily basis to support each other. I must say, we're probably going to talk about that. We're also in a business with wine that we are dealing with women working with alcohol, and the relationship and how women and alcohol have been seen over the centuries and up to recently has been very different than how men have been seen dealing with alcohol. And so we had, I think, that extra layer of difficulties because we are working with a product that is extremely loaded in terms of symbolism, in terms of what that can do and affect, in terms of the relationship with health, that as a woman, I think it's been even probably more difficult to find the balance, to find a legitimacy because of that. So it's also something where I see it as probably at the beginning as a burden, but we also can lead the way to show that we can work with a substance like that in a balanced way, both in terms of our health, but also in terms of society. And I think women can really be a very, very strong voice for that.
Mm. And coming in from a different perspective, because coming in with a different perspective, because you're coming in with a different relationship and different symbolism, how women and alcohol have been portrayed, how women and wine have been portrayed. And so you come in with a different mindset and a different kind of vision of what you need to address.
Probably yes, because we are just I would say so, yeah. I've seen, and we are still saying that at least I'm once again, I should have said that before, I'm just really talking about my small point of view and my experience that has been mostly in America, New York, and France. But for sure, like an overconsumption of alcohol by a woman is not necessarily seen the same by an overconsumption of alcohol by men, which often is, or has been, oh, awesome, these guys can drink so much, like bravo, this is fantastic, like he's a man, blah blah. Or he's like you don't say the same thing about a woman. It's kind of the opposite, like she has right away a problem, or she should behave, or like blah blah blah. So there is a lot of prejudices about that, and things that I've been talking a lot with my colleagues, my women colleagues, and we know that I still believe that we still have to prove a bit more that we have worth in terms of our competency. I think it's definitely way better, but there is still sometimes you need to prove a little bit more. But on that side, I don't want to do a competition if I can drink down a guy, because I think it's absolutely stupid. But for a while, it may have still seen as something that was a plus or value. I think it's our duty as wine professional and our people working with alcohol to show that, we are working with an extraordinary product that's transcendent, that has such a cultural strength, that is bounding people from other culture, but it has to be done in a way that we can do it for all our life, and in a way that is not damaging our health, and being conscious of the damage of that can produce. So I think this is also why I'm working with certain wine, when I'm starting with certain food. I have just so much respect for what we eat and drink, how it affects our overall body, or holistic good. That I want to do that for all my life. I want to teach how to do that for all my life to people that I'm working with. I despise a kind of a snobism of alcoholism. It's not because you are drinking amazing stuff all the time that you don't necessarily have a problem with alcohol. And it's a slippery slope, and we need just to be mindful of that and just encourage, you know, a just enjoyable, pleasurable consumption made with products that are made in a way that are also better for our health, coming from an agriculture that is a viticulture that is preserving the environment, but also the people working in the vineyard and us drinking, and we can do that in a better way for everybody. You know, there is a real pleasure out of that. So that's a big disruption right now, I think, because it's still, we are seeing people saying alcohol is poison, other people just not caring about it and just binge drinking. We have these extremes, and none of them is good. You know, I think there is a medium path that we need to find, that I hope I can embody with the way I'm working with wine.
So to comment on that, first off, the approach, the philosophy, the type of responsibility that you feel as not a sommelier, and for me, when I think of a sommelier, I think of, and I'm going to think of specifically of you, I think about an educator, that there's someone who you have really committed to knowing, diving deep, really understanding, becoming an expert, being an expert in your field, and that how you help to guide people. And just to give everyone a little bit of a backstory, I've known Pascaline for really a couple of decades now, and met first in when you were at Rouge Tomate, and I walked into this restaurant, and I said, well, you know, we're going to have, let's try a glass of wine or whatever. And this woman came over, and it was, oh my gosh, you know, well, you know, where is he? You know, where is he? And it was you, and that you were so passionate and so committed to biodynamic wine, and just created such a lovely atmosphere. And one of the things that I want everybody to know who are showing up now is that connection and relationship is everything. And that from the very first time that I met you, you were so clear, you were committed, you were knowledgeable, you were caring, you listened, and you took this all in to help create this very beautiful experience. And an experience that that I've loved. And so whenever you're anywhere in your life, one thing I want people to take away is that you never know. You have to be open to having a relationship and being curious about someone and wanting to have connection. And that when you have connection, you never know what can happen. And so here we are today, and my daughters who are adults now, uh, they have you in a special place in their hearts, and always excited and happy to see you. And this is part of this can be part of the experience, is that you have a trusted guide, you have a knowledgeable guide, you know, you have an expert, and that's part of your space, is really bringing your wisdom and hearing what people like, and sometimes just giving them on the spot, expanding people's horizons. And that you're an educator, you're a guide, and you help to bring memories and pleasure.
No, but that's very, very kind. I, I think when you choose to work in restaurants and you work on your restaurant, there is also a pleasure on our side, because we are building a list and we are we feel very grateful to be able to represent wineries and people that we really like, and we are lucky to work in a very specific place. Like a restaurant is nothing comparable. But at the end, we are in a restaurant, and the guest experiences should be our number one focus. And I must say that my I take a lot of pleasure trying to understand the guests in a very short amount of time in this very specific place, because you come, you're celebrating, or you just had a great day or a bad day, but you're here to eat and just like to have a moment for yourself and your friends and all. And we are just trying to make it the best possible, but listening to, or try to understand what you are looking for, and on our hand, do all the back work that you don't necessarily see, which is sourcing the product and creating a menu and all that. But try to make you connect with this physical experience of the good taste of something that's just good, like good food, good wine. And so I see myself less and less of an educator when I am on the floor. I think I'm an educator when I teach, when I write, or when I talk with you like that. But on the floor, I don't see myself as an educator anymore. I see more myself about someone that has the opportunity to, without necessarily talking, just by choosing the right wine at that moment, to make you feel your own power, make you feel that by eating and drinking is the taste, that feeling of satisfaction, of how much that can bring to you in terms of physical pleasure and emotional pleasure. That's something I just want to awake in people, because I think we are in a society that doesn't really want you to know how much power you have by this sense. We know by the sight, we know by the ear, but the touch and the taste is totally underwhelmed and undereducated. And I just, by listening to my guests, finding that right wine with that right food that night, just knowing that I'm doing my job, by making you feel that. Because I believe, I do believe my job is way more than just picking wine. It's really choosing a type of agriculture, it's choosing a type of viticulture that can be sustainable tomorrow. All our choices are so important. We know that today. But if I can have people realize by changing maybe a little bit the way they eat and drink for their own pleasure, they can really be part of a larger movement today, that is, how can we be in a better relationship with what surrounds us. And you have that power in you, and not only you have that power in you, but it can be super good, like you can really have a great moment. So I'm less of an educator than that, but to do that, restaurant is a perfect place. You just need to listen, and you really need to be there. Like every day when I go on the floor, I really believe myself, because I'm so lucky to do the job I love, to be working with something so magical as wine. I know I have my rights, but I have my duties, and my duties as a professional is to make sure that you have that experience with yourself, and then of course with your friend, but yourself, by eating and drinking, because this is the way we're going to be able to change the world. Like, it's not going to, like, I really believe the revolution is going to happen with the taste. The next revolution is happening with that. And that's my duty as a person lucky enough to work in this restaurant in New York with so many amazing wines. That's my duty, to make the bridge between the people walking on our land and you consuming something, and showing we can consume in a different way.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I've never heard it described in this kind of way. And I would like to add that even though you're not an educator at the moment of in the restaurant, but you're bringing all of your experience, your knowledge, your education, and your ability to put all of this together to help someone have, to support them, to introduce them to having this kind of experience. And that it's such a commitment on your part. I don't know, that it's so fundamental also knowing you and knowing you for as long as I know you, and also speaking with you here today, just how committed, what a commitment that is, and how seriously you take that to heart and to mind.
Yeah, but I want to be I want to be looking at myself every day in the mirror and thinking that my contribution on this planet is meaningful, or at least is not, or trying to not make it even worse. I really believe there is a sense of duty, the way that I think when you are going in a classroom and you're teaching to kids, or when you're helping people, to find themselves. We are here for the greater good. And once again, yes, I take my job very seriously because you know what? I think there is urgency right now. And you can go two ways. You can continue to say, it sucks, the world is burning, it's a disaster, we need to change, like catastrophic, or you can just try to find a way in every day. And I think everybody can do that in their job every day to make sure whatever you are doing on your daily life contributes to make the change happen, but in a positive way. In like saying, yeah, like we know the overall, we saw that things are not necessarily doing well, but we can complain, we can forbid, we can say do less, do less, do less. So we can say, hey, by changing a little bit of something, we can have as much satisfaction. But I want to be part of that. I don't want to be just like having my little bubbles and opening my super cool wine, and just like it doesn't make any sense for me. That's not what interests me in the wine industry. I would do something else otherwise. I will make billion, like speculating on shit. But I don't see any interest in that, and it's definitely not the purpose I want to give to my life. So.
And it's fundamental as I'm talking to you that breaking bread together is one of the fundamental pieces of, bread metaphorically, but that we as human beings, we all need to eat. Some people are struggling with that, but that's a fundamental part of being human, and it connects us in our humanity together. And so when we're looking for how can we be alike, how can we make connection? And sometimes as we're trying to find that, it can become as simple as something as you eat, oh, you like soup? I like soup too. You like this? I like that too. And that we find connectedness, we find similarity, we find a way of being in our humanity together.
No, yes, absolutely. I think it's something I think is true. I think it's something also that has been said over and over by some bad marketing, and over abuse in a certain way because it's a message that we don't really hear anymore because it's so everywhere. But then we need to practice back again.
Yes.
Simple like making food at home, taking the time to eat. When I see the budget that is allocated for things that for me I find extremely superficial, and I keep on reading that the food budget for families are getting down and down when it's one of the most, like if you don't eat you die, and if you don't eat well you get sick. So it's one of the most fundamental things, but it
Yes.
feels like we want just to be given junk food and putting the money towards things that may not fulfill as much. But it's true that as soon as you get along and you start to cook for yourself, you reconnect with a certain rhythm of life, and you share again once again with yourself, your family, your friends. It's a necessity. It's a physiological necessity, but I agree with you. I think it's a psychological necessity to, instead of eating your takeaway stuff in front of your screen for like 10 minutes, versus having a real sit-down lunch with a team, is just not at all. The fulfillment is not the same both for your body and for your mind. And when we start to get back to these habits, it's important. But look, we are not, at least in New York right now, we are not necessarily in a society that allows that. Is working all the time. We totally disrupted the pattern of eating. It's eating in 2 seconds, like between two meetings. You have to force yourself to go back to this time. Restaurant are still. I think there is two types of restaurant. In fact, there is restaurant where you just get into your. These are not really restaurants. There are places where you get your daily carb intake or like calories intake. So it's just like you grab a salad, you get a sandwich. Like you don't really whatever. You just put some nutrients in your body, bad nutrients often in your body. And there is restaurants that are more like, I would say, more entertainment, but like place of life. When at that time you go for an experience where you can find yourself again. And these restaurants are very important because it allows us to reconnect with something that in a lot of places today, at least where we are surrounded by food and extreme abundance of food, we totally forgot and we take for granted.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a very important moment. And once again, I really believe the day that we realize that it can change the food system, and if we change the food system, you change the medical system, and you change the political system, everything is connected. But that is the best way. It's a very good way to start. And it's, once again, you do it and it's enjoyable. Like, it's very
Absolutely.
pleasure.
So I just want to, as we've come to the, boy, it's a blink spending time with you, Pascaline. The time goes so quickly, and I love our conversation. I want everyone to know that if you want to find Pascaline, you can find her at Chambers, where she is helping and is a pivotal team member to bring pleasure and to help you experience a meal and your wine in just a most delightful way. In addition to that, Pascaline is also an author, and she has written a book called Mille Vignes, A Thousand Vines, which is now in French. So if you're lucky enough to speak French, go buy this book. And if not, then like many of us, we have to wait for the English version to come out. And if that wasn't enough, she also is making wine, a small quantity of natural wines from the Finger Lakes in New York under the label Chapika. And so you can find her that way. So Pascaline is someone who is findable and is someone that you should find, because she is committed, thoughtful, interested, and really committed to the greater good. So I can't, Pascaline, I know this is what you do every day to come on Instagram. So it means even more to me that you've honored us by being here today. And we're just going to take a moment now to take our snapshot. Thank you, everyone who has joined. Please tell your friends to take a look that this, if you've missed it live, you can still watch it. You haven't missed out on it. Come join us. Pascaline is on Instagram as well. Follow her. She has amazing advice. You can follow me for different kinds of advice. And can't wait to see you next time. And Pascaline, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So let's take our moment. And one more moment. Until I see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.